what started kind of tame with the classic Bill Belichick, like grumbly, grumpy. I'm not going to tell you anything press conference, but there were still some nuggets there. Turned friggin' wild when Robert Kraft just started running his mouth about Lamar Jackson. So things got really interesting and really funny. So we're here to break it down with you guys, talk about what's real, what's not real, what is, what could be. Taylor Kyles has his opinions on Lamar Jackson.
I always do.
Both in terms of what it could look like on the field, whether or not it's feasible, whether or not the Patriots can do it. But again, alarm bells kind of went off today when the story kind of came out. Especially Kraft spoke after Belichick. A lot of people, Taylor, I think, thought he might put him on notice, like he did a couple years ago, like this isn't acceptable. But instead, he kind of sleeked this out. It's also interesting how he did it.
CLNS Media's Patriots coverage is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook.
So we'll talk about how the whole day went down and get your take on things. Listen to you guys in the comments. By all means, fire away when you got stuff to talk about, and we'll put it up there on the screen as well. Tell you real quick, the podcast, as always, sponsored by FanDuel, our exclusive wagering partners. Go to FanDuel.com/Boston and take advantage of this special offer. Get $200 in bonus bets when you place your first $5 wager. So go check that out. So let's start off the day. I mean, it's burying the lead. I don't want to bury the lead here. Let's just get to it. A lot of interesting things between Kraft and Belichick regarding just, again, little nuggets, and you got to read between the lines a lot here to see how this stuff goes. So we'll talk about it, how Bill talked about, things, how Kraft talked about some of the same topics, and that would have been what we would have done, go back and forth. But then what happens, Kraft's kind of done talking, and, he's just holding court informally with a few people, and he just kind of leaks out there that, I guess, friggin', Meek Mill texted him, and there it is, and says Lamar Jackson's available. Lamar Jackson wants to be here, according to Meek Mill, and then they follow up and say, well, are you going to do that? And he's like, oh, that's up to Bill. That's friggin' wild to me. It took a while for that to set in, both the possibility that Lamar Jackson wants to play here, but also what is Kraft doing? This is like drunk ownership.
He's on some Irsay. He's on his Irsay flow right now.
He just hung Bill out to dry and just put it out there. Like, I love Mac, but yeah, we could have Lamar, I guess, but that's Bill's thing. Talk to him. Okay, so here you go. So you got this. So what do you make of it?
Man, that was just crazy, honestly, because you texted me, and at first I thought the phrasing was was something like, oh, he would play for the Patriots or whatever, not as serious. But seeing it, man, I'm still kind of processing, and I still want to leave room in my brain for saying, like, maybe he said it in jest. Like, maybe he truly is just an older man who's kind of just saying whatever he wants. But also, that's not Kraft. Like, Kraft is pretty, measured in his words usually. I don't think he would say something that extreme as a joke when he's talking to reporters. Either way, he put Bill in a really weird position. And he also he didn't contradict himself. But minutes earlier, like a half hour before that, he was saying, I believe in Mac. I think we've given him the pieces to succeed. He's in a better position. And while those two things can be true at the same time, it was just a wild pivot from seeming to be like, yeah, no, Mac's our guy, which, he didn't say that explicitly, but said, he believed in him and was a fan. And then to just go, not 180, but at least a hard 90 and be like, yeah, but also maybe we're going to get Lamar if Bill says so. And even said earlier that Bill's the one who runs the football team. So to a degree, that's what he was saying for all those kinds of questions. He made his feelings known, but said at the end of the day, Bill runs everything and he's been doing a pretty good job. Also, the fact that, it's not like Bill being not candid is new or surprising. But you think about it, if they were talking about acquiring Lamar Jackson, would he be kind of coy, or would he be defensive? And when asked about acquiring other players, he put his foot down, albeit he was being asked to an annoying degree. And I could see where he just got to the point where he was just no, seriously, I'm not talking about any of this. But he was adamant that he wasn't talking about anybody that wasn't on the roster. As you've been, trying to hammer in my head for the past couple of weeks, he has not committed to Mac Jones since midseason, which, again, as you pointed out, he did last year. And he said that Mac was the quarterback going into last season. It just didn't follow through, obviously, throughout the whole season because Mac was turning it over too much and deserved to be questioned. Bailey Zappi came in and did well, albeit against inferior competition with better game planning. And then Mac stopped making mistakes, but they still struggled because there were a billion other things that were wrong. So, it's interesting because while I do think that Mac can be a Pro Bowl guy, you still have the option now that it's on the table, I guess, to get someone who's proven he can be an MVP, still has room to go as a passer in a good way, and has already taken huge strides. And then you have Mac Jones, who could be good, but you still don't know what he is necessarily at this level. So it's interesting. And honestly, with Kraft putting it all the way out there, like, I'm the guy who doesn't like to talk about, if this, then that, because it's just, at some point, it feels like a waste of breath. But man, it's the offseason, and, Kraft said what he said. So now we're talking about it, and, you can't just ignore it.
Yeah, you cannot ignore it, but it's like it got in. I mean, again, why say it is the craziest thing to me is like, what do you gain here? Like, it makes no sense. And like the manner in which he said it makes me think that he wants it out there and wasn't asked about it as Bill was, and Bill got annoyed. He wasn't asked, so he didn't get a chance to answer it directly. So he just kind of offhand tosses it out to people afterwards, I think, kind of wondering. So like, to me, it's like, again, you're reading tea leaves here. You have no idea. But out of one side of his mouth, Kraft's like, I love Mac. And out of the other, he's like, but, we could have Lamar, but if Bill wants him, I don't know. It's his call. It's not mine. No big deal. But like, that's kind of putting a lot of pressure on Bill to like, dude, this guy wants to play for you. Are you going to go do something about it? And you almost wonder if behind the scenes, Kraft is like, and we know that relationship is entirely of Kraft owns the team and he knows Bill's good at his job, but they're not like this, and they don't really.
I think they're as close as like two older guys who've worked together as long as they have probably could be.
They don't mix and mingle. We've seen it. You see the Belichick documentary, Kraft walks in his office and he's like, what? So like, I don't know whether he wants to hear Robert coming in and saying stuff to him about football, but I think Kraft feels like, so I kind of got a hot tip. Lamar, what do you think? And Bill's
he hasn't been shy about calling Belichick out for the past few years. With the draft, he even said it today where, a few years ago it was reported that the Patriots overhauled how they were doing drafting because, in not so many words, they were basically saying that Belichick is like making his own picks and disregarding like all this work that the scouting team is putting in, and started giving more influence to the younger people on the staff and letting their work show. And obviously their past few drafts have been pretty good. So, again, this is one of those where it's like, this isn't just a thing that Kraft does all the time. Like, he's not Jim Irsay. He's not going to have the press conferences where you're like, all right, in all honesty, like, is he okay? Like, Kraft says what he means, and as we've seen recently, he's okay with putting little things out there, being like, yeah, I'm not super happy with what Bill's doing. He controls things, but, I'm just the guy who owns the team. So, what does that mean?
No, I know it's again, it's interesting because it puts Bill in a tight spot here because now it's a thing that's hovering over him and his decision making, but it puts Mac in a tight spot too because before you don't know if he has Bill's endorsement, but you think he's got Kraft's. Now you've got Kraft kind of batting his eyes at a different quarterback. That really creates a ton of uncertainty in the whole situation as Mac's entering camp without Bill saying that he's got the job outright. And let's start with Bill. Let's kind of run the timeline here.
Yeah.
Okay, this is Bill's comment again with Mac and Zappi. Actually, maybe we'll go backwards here. Let me see what I'm gonna do first.
This comment section is wild.
What are they mad about?
They're saying that Lamar's a running back, which I'm going to be super honest is either like just completely ignorant on your part if you think he's just a running back, or you have some, maybe personal issues that you need to work out, because to say that Lamar Jackson is just a quarterback or just an arm is so embarrassingly ignorant of you.
Oh my God.
Be super honest when you say that.
Taylor's getting mad he's coming at you guys.
Yeah, it's stupid. It's really stupid.
I got my money on Taylor.
This is the internet, guys. Like, people can see you when you talk like this. You look stupid. Thanks for tuning in, but
let's play. Here's Belichick from June. Here's just one thing in minicamp, and this is just a simple one, but this is minicamp. I'm going all the way back to OTAs, rather.
What role will he have in helping to shape things?
We'll do everything we can, really, to make it as good for him as we can. He's our quarterback, so.
Very simply, he's our quarterback without much discussion. Here's Bill going even more overboard. And Amit, when's this from? Put it in the chat. When is this bite from? Sometime during the year, might have been, was it preseason? I forget. He might not be here. This is Bill last year. Okay. Also talking about Mac.
Yeah, I think Mac's done a great job. He's worked extremely hard. He's got a tremendous work ethic, and in all areas, I think there's a dramatic improvement. His physical work and conditioning, working on his mechanics, working on his footwork, working on his understanding of our offense, of opponent defenses, of situations, all those things. We've talked about all those things in varying degrees, some more emphasis than others, and the emphasis on maybe some other things will come later on. We can't do it all at once, but yeah, he's worked hard. Important. He's made tremendous strides, and
that's him gushing.
That's a right good evaluation.
That's the beginning of training camp.
Yeah,
when that was okay. So that's that. And then today he's just asked, like, is Mac in there, or are we competing, or what's going on here? And this is from the owners' meetings today.
Would it be fair to say that both Mac and Bailey Zappi will be competing for the starting job over the summer, or is it Mac's job?
Yeah, well, everybody get a chance to play. We'll play the best players.
So it's still kind of a competition.
Everybody will get a chance to play.
If it's not a competition, you gain. It either is a competition or it's not, but Bill still wants Mac to think it is. It's one of those two things.
Yeah, I mean, look, a Bill non-answer is never something I want to look into too deeply. Like, yes, I think there's significance when you see him clearly having one sentiment towards another. I'm not arguing against that at all.
It's just past precedent. Like,
absolutely.
One of the most famous sound bites of the last 10 years is poor Giardi asking him whether they would address the quarterback position after the Kansas City debacle, whenever that was, 2016, 20 whatever. And Belichick just looks at him and scoffs. That thing's on documentaries, okay?
Yes.
Tom's our guy. When he with Cam was unequivocally the guy throughout the whole year, even though when he was bad. Well, you're going to play Stidham? Cam's our quarterback. Cam's our quarterback. Cam's our quarterback. I don't want to talk about it. Not talking about it goes against how he's talked about stuff like this before. It's like debating himself here. You don't even have to read into it. He's answered it one way before, and he's answering it differently now.
And I try to think about, go back to Bill's roots. Like, he worked with Parcells, and Parcells was the master of the whole psychological game, and different people need different motivators. Now, there's obviously Belichick is going to yell at everybody. There's that whole thing. But he also, I think, understands how to send certain messages. And he uses the media for that, even if people like to think that all he does is mumble and groan or whatever. So because there is this precedent, we clearly see that there are times where, especially when he was doing that for Cam, when he was doing it for Mac, when he was doing it for Brady, those were low points in their careers where truly it would, especially with Mac, considering he was coming off the whole thing where they didn't know if he was even going to play. And then he kind of had to give him this backing. I think he understands there are situations where this guy needs my full support because he's got the weight of the world crashing down on him and he's doing the best he can. I think last year, maybe Mac, wasn't the best version of himself. I think there were probably maybe points where Belichick was pissed off at how maybe he carried himself or addressed coaches, considering that it was such a different situation that they're used to where Brady can very much do that. And no one's going to question when Brady is ripping a coach, because you have to do a lot for Brady to get so mad that he rips you as someone who's higher on the totem pole. But when Mac does it to someone that Bill has won Super Bowls with, I can understand how that would rub Bill the wrong way. So I think it's very fair to say maybe he's putting Mac on notice to say, I think the whole Mac versus Zappi thing, to me, that's dumb until Mac shows you on the field that he cannot do it, which I don't think is going to happen. That is the debate I don't like having, because I think that literally is just okay, you can win by saying you think it's a real competition, but you win by default because Mac fell off the face of the earth. Yeah. Now, when Lamar's in the conversation, it's different because this isn't, we don't know what we have. This is, okay, if we keep him healthy, he makes everyone around us better. He makes the organization better. People want to come to your organization. That's maybe something that seems like it's out there and is intangible and people don't like to talk about. But I remember Calvin Johnson interviewed with Bill Perry, and he was saying, I wouldn't want to go to New England right now. Like, if I were playing, I wouldn't want to go there. No offense, but it's just not really a hot spot. Yeah. Other people feel that way. Lamar Jackson, people want to play for Lamar Jackson. And if some veteran who's very good will take even a little bit off to play with Lamar, they're getting that money. Kraft's not afraid of spending money. He just wants good contracts. Same with Bill.
So that's the best point anyone's going to make on it. It's you can be in the Mac camp. First of all, I find it, I mean, let's be honest. You can't compare the two players. You can compare the situations. A cheap quarterback that I can try to load up other places, or an expensive franchise quarterback that takes up an insane amount of my cap space. Then I got to be really smart, draft super well, and my margin of error is a lot smaller.
And Kraft even emphasized the draft today during his presser. He was saying, we've invested money in the wrong places. He said the foundation for building a strong team is the draft. So he's gung-ho.
So you got to hit it. He crapped on 3 or 4 drafts. He said they're trending up the last couple. He mentioned that. So it's not the player. And anybody who's like, we don't want Lamar, I'm fine with Mac. Can you pretend right now that the Patriots had drafted Lamar Jackson? He was in his free agent year. Do you think Patriots fans would be like, dump this dude. Let's go get that Mac Jones guy? Like, no way would you think that. And it's not a knock on Mac. You're talking about one of the more dynamic players in NFL history, honestly, but like a guy who's a couple years removed from an MVP, who was playing like an MVP through the first 5-6 games of last year. I think it's just, but the thing you said is the best point of all is right now the Pats are not a hot spot. Why would a receiver come here? Like, if they're not going to give someone like DeAndre Hopkins the most money, why would he want this to be his spot? To go to a kind of limp offense without a great this and that, and like I'm not going to put up my stats, and they're not the type of team that feeds a number one receiver anyway, and like it's not exciting. They're not a contender. They might be 4th in the division. Obviously, a lot could change, but on paper right now, people are looking at this as worst quarterback in the division, worst team in the division. What am I doing over there? Unless you're paying a ton of money, there isn't a lot of reason. There's no Brady draw anymore. There's no come here to win, sacrifice to win. That was the pull.
There's the Belichick draw, but it's not the same. Like Juju was saying, I came for Belichick, but like not a lot of players, especially on offense, are coming for Belichick.
Sign up at FanDuel.com/Boston and get in on the action with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet.